My name is Kevin Salvin, and I'm I'm professor of music and associate dean at the University of Gay Park in San Antonio, Texas. I'm delighted today to help share this program with you, introduce this program called Musica, misiones in South Texas. So, in addition to my role at UIW, I'm also president of the Southwest chapter of the American Musicological Society. And this program today is part of a larger series of events called Many Musics of America. And that's a landmark event series that's meant to spotlight the richness and diversity of America's musical traditions. It's partly funded by the National Writing Project, which is a national network of teachers, university faculty, researchers, writers, community educators who are working to advance writing and the teaching of writing in America. So I want to say just a couple of quick thank yous. Thank you to Brother Kevin, and thank you to Diana in the church office for being our gracious hosts. Thanks to Siobhan Walker and the Office of the National American Musicological Society, my fellow AMS Southwest officers, including Virginia Wilton, who you'll hear from in just a minute, and particularly Adolfo Estrada and Mariachi, Nueva, Generación, who are playing today. So thanks very much, and here's Virginia Wilton to introduce the group.
Good afternoon, I'm Virginia Milton, and I serve as Secretary and Treasurer of the Southwest Chapter of the American Musicological Society. I'm also an assistant professor at Texas Tech University. For decades, our chapter's conferences have drawn scholars, students, and other researchers from Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and sometimes beyond. Formal presentations about music history are the backbone of our gatherings, sometimes augmented with workshops and other activities. It is much rarer, in fact unprecedented, that we have an opportunity like this to host a public lecture and recital. We do so thanks to the generous sponsorship that Dr. Salvin just mentioned. In the spirit of our great sponsor, today we gather in a National Historic Park. You can find yourself here mesmerized, as I have been, by the layers of cultural convergence. In the acequias, technologies of Roman conquerors and Roman caliphs, imposed on Spain here, transported across an ocean in a new age of empire. The urban spaces of medieval Europe, the clean lines of Renaissance town squares, and the ornate decorations of the Spanish world rise from the earth in Texas limestone, crafted through the labor and expertise of the indigenous communities who made these missions their home centuries ago. The San Antonio missions are abundantly deserving of their status as one of only 24 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the United States. Yet, as visitors to this national park learn, they are more than a compelling relic of the past. They are more than an example of exquisite historic restoration and preservation. They are the heart and the lifeblood of the vibrant and enduring communities. Musicologists like myself usually belong at some point to academic communities, as students, professors, librarians, and administrators who are in some other capacity. To earn any sort of music degree in the United States, you will almost certainly have to take courses on the history of European and American music. The textbooks that we use are hundreds of pages long, or thousands if you want to count the anthologies. For all that, Texas usually garners at most a few sentences in these narratives, perhaps a note that Catholic missionaries brought their liturgies to musicians. And I see there are some outside. Please come in if you'd like to join us. We're having a lecture, recital, free. You are welcome. We're celebrating the musical heritage of our musicians. Through Dr. Estrada, then a PhD student at my institution, Texas Tech, I discovered that these missions have been a nexus of local nation and community, not just in the 18th century, but in our lifetime. He knows because it's their work, as have we even here. These missions upend the scholarly models of music in the United States that generally follow a westward expansion narrative, and that seldom entertain notions of indigenous
I would like to open with a quote from Musica's 1992 work, San Antonio Missions, National Historical Park. He writes, Friar Gaspar José Solís visited in 1768, the year construction of the stone church began, the mission, which had a population of 350 Indians. Among the men, 110 could handle weapons for the mission's defense, 45 could use guns, and 75 could handle bow and arrow, lance, and other weapons. Education was well advanced. Friar Solís observed, all the mission's Indians speak Spanish, except for those who were too old when they arrived from the wilderness. Most of them are able to play an instrument, some the guitar, others the violin or the harp. On certain holidays, they sing the rosary in four-voice harmony and accompany themselves with their instruments. All can sing and dance like civilized people elsewhere, and all have two outfits, one for everyday work and a better one for holidays and celebrations. Boys and girls attend school. This account, though brief, and though shaped by the biases of its colonial narrative, is a stunning testament to the long history of musical innovation and transformation held at these missions. When Catholic missionaries established these missions, they brought their music, their musical traditions, and their musical practices. These were not just expressions of faith, they were tools they used to attract and convert indigenous communities, to create new subjects for the King of Spain. Here, as in elsewhere throughout Latin America, indigenous communities did and indeed embrace this new music with gusto and relish. But musical novelty here did not happen just in the way the Catholic missionaries expected. Notably, the instruments he mentions are all stringed instruments, which have no precedent before the arrival of the Spanish in the Americas. Friar Solís describes here an exceptionally musically skilled community, far above the standards of average accomplishment in contemporaneous Europe. In other words, within a generation, the indigenous communities of the San Jose Mission had not only learned to play these musical instruments, but reimagined and repurposed them. As we will explore today, one of the continuing legacies of this mission and its community involves the very instruments Friar Solís named: the guitar, the harp, the violin, all core instruments of the Mariachi tradition. The missions in South Texas, particularly in San Antonio, serve as a nexus for the historic and modern development of the musical traditions in the United States. Although Mariachi is now the most prominent of those traditions, and although Mariachi's roots go back centuries, their specific tie to these missions is much more recent. Today, we will explore how these missions came to play such a powerful role in using Mariachi, encompassing Latino, Latina, and Mexican diasporic experiences in San Antonio, Texas, and the United States, more broadly in the late 20th and 21st centuries. The national musical symbol of Mexico, Mariachi music has expanded to become an important transnational genre, popular within diasporic Mexican communities throughout the United States, especially here in Texas. The revival of interest in expressing musical heritage in second and third generation Mexican Americans can be directly associated with the creation of professional mariachi ensembles, academic pedagogy programs, mariachi festivals north of the border, Mexican-US border, and the Catholic Church. As we will see, the San Antonio missions have been a key site for the intersection of all these. Within Latino, and Mexican diasporic communities, the missions create and maintain community and family ties through religious worship and social activities like music and dance within a Catholic paradigm. For Catholics, many life cycle rituals such as baptisms, First Communion, quinceañeras, marriage, funerals, burials, and many others are celebrated with masses. Specific repertoire for each of these occasions exists within the Mariachi tradition, and it is not uncommon for these celebrations to include a mariachi ensemble. You will hear some of this later in today's program. Let's talk briefly about what mariachi is. What is mariachi? The mariachi tradition is a musical tradition from West Central Mexico. Initially, mariachi ensembles comprised stringed instruments only. A typical ensemble consisted of 4 members. That would be 2 violins, a strummed guitar variant, and a bass instrument. But at present, the standard mariachi instrumentation incorporates 6 violins, 2 to 3 trumpets, a harp, a bass guitar, and at least 2 strummed guitar-like instruments. For most of its established legacy, the mariachi tradition is a musical tradition monopolized exclusively by men in every aspect of its dissemination and development. The long process of historical development of mariachi mirrors Mexico's history in the late 20th and 21st centuries. From its humble beginnings as the music of the regional Mexican countryside, the mariachi tradition is now recognized as a major world music genre, as evidenced by the fact that mariachi ensembles can be found worldwide, across Latin America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and as far as Japan. In 2011, UNESCO inscribed the mariachi tradition on the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The UNESCO Mariachi website page entry concludes with: "El aprendizaje de oído es el principal medio de transmisión de la música de mariachi tradicional, y las competencias técnicas se transmiten de padres a hijos y también por intermedio de los espectáculos organizados con motivo de festividades, ya sean religiosas o civiles. La música mariachi transmite valores que fomentan el respeto del patrimonio natural de las regiones mexicanas y de la historia local, tanto en español como en las diversas lenguas indígenas del oeste del país." Rote learning is the primary method of transmission of the music of the traditional mariachi, and his competencies are transmitted through patrilineal lines, through spectacular organized festivals that can be either religious or secular. Mariachi music transmits values that foment respect for the natural patrimony of regional Mexican musics, along with their local history. It can be found utilizing Spanish and other languages found in the western region of the country. Before the Mexican Revolution, mariachi music was rurally based music performed by and for prosperous agrarian communities. Indicating status and wealth, mariachi music was the exclusive music that the local communities utilized in their celebrations. The music of these rural ensembles sonically weaved the corporal movements of dancers. Just before the start of the Mexican Revolution in 1907 and into the 1930s, mariachi practitioners, in attempts to establish themselves, moved to major metropolitan areas like Guadalajara and Mexico City. Once established in these major urban centers, the mariachi underwent a multitude of changes toward becoming the modern mariachi ensemble we know at present. The mariachi tradition functions as celebratory music for various life cycle events significant to the Mexican diaspora and all people of Latin American backgrounds. Mariachi music can follow a person from birth, baptism, marriage, birthday celebrations, divorce, death, and many other situations. The vast repertoire has meaningful songs for all of these occasions, and people can express their joy and sorrow through this music. The dress of the mariachi announces a visually unmistakable marker of identity. The form-fitting pants, the jacket, the vest, all adorned with buttons, boots, bow tie, and a large brim sombrero, complete the aesthetic of the idealized Mexican chavo or horseman. More than a visual marker, the suit encapsulates identity, including Mexican nationalism, legitimacy, and tradition. Musically, the present-day mariachi ensemble can be thought of as a small chamber orchestra. The admixture of European and mestizo instruments places mariachi instrumentation ubiquitously as a tradition born from the New World. The ease at which many instruments in the mariachi ensemble can accommodate other musical traditions is a testament to their adaptability. Currently, the list of associated musical genres and traditions incorporated by the mariachi is continually expanding. Mariachi in the United States. The flourishing of mariachi in connection with these missions in the late 20th and 21st centuries are built upon several intersecting developments. Spread of mariachi in the United States. First among these was the spread of mariachi music to Scholars Jauregui and Salazar note mariachi practices in Central and Northern California as early as 1904. At that time, mariachi was still understood primarily as a marker of Spanish and not Mexican, certainly not had Hispanic identity, as it is now. In its contemporary context, mariachi may seem like another form of popular and commercial music, but it is music that is celebratory and performed at all major life cycle events of the Mexican diaspora. And it continues to be aligned with the life cycle events for these Mexican diaspora communities and the Catholic churches. Development II, Vatican II and its aftermath. In the mid-20th century, the way that Catholic Mexican and Catholic Mexican diaspora communities changed profoundly. The Second Ecumenical Council of the Vatican was held over 4 years, beginning in the year 1962 and through 1965, in 8 sessions at St. Peter's Basilica. At the request of John Paul XIII, the Church held meetings in order to reassess and update its approach in the secularized 20th century. The focus was on making the teachings relevant and accessible to the greater laity within an ever more secularized world. Following the sessions of Vatican II, major changes came to the Catholic Church. One of the most significant changes resulting from the Second Vatican Council was the extensive inclusion of the vernacular instead of Latin to celebrate the Mass. In Latin America, the changes that took place utilized the inclusion of non-standard instrumentation for the celebration of the liturgy. All throughout Latin America, local instruments were popularized, particularly chordophones, string instruments, aerophones, which are wind instruments, and idiophones, percussion instruments. In 1966, a collaboration took place between Canadian brother Jean-Marc and Mariachi Hermanos Macias. Jean-Marc was an avid listener of folk music and undergoing archival research in the capital city of Morelos, which is Cuernavaca. According to the liner notes found on the seminal LP record, Misa Panamericana, members of the parish began slowly incorporating guitars, flutes, and maracas into their liturgical celebrations. Jean-Marc then decided that the entire Mass should be arranged and performed by a professional ensemble. Mariachi Hermanos Macias was solicited to adapt, arrange, and perform the Mass. When used to hold that a mariachi was being utilized to celebrate the Catholic Mass, locals flocked to witness it. The acceptance and fervor for it were so great that it was then brought to the cathedral in Nueva. Then in the August or second Sunday of Easter of 1966, saw the first celebration of the Misa Panamericana. Due to the Mariachi ensemble's instrumentation, the Misa Panamericana was dubbed a Mariachi Mass by the 1,500 to 2,000 average visitors per Mass. The Misa Panamericana was recorded live and televised numerous times in its initial year. Public opinion overall was accepting of the Mariachi Mass, and testimonies at the time state that people were brought to tears when the celebration of the liturgy. One was quoted in saying, "Con esta misa, uno se siente más cerca de Dios." This is a Mass in which one feels closer to God. The third development, Mariachi festivals in San Antonio. San Antonio, Texas has been and continues to be an important location for the transmission and dissemination of mariachi music in the United States. In 1979, the very first mariachi festival was organized in San Antonio, effectively launching the Mariachi Festival movement. These festivals typically comprise with 5 main components. 1, an educational musical workshop. 2, mariachi ensemble showcases. 3, mariachi group category competitions. 4, premier mariachi concerts. And 5, a mariachi or Misa Panamericana. The more prominent festivals incorporate mariachi workshops as well and provide other performance opportunities. This first festival was a success and was supported and attended enthusiastically by mariachi musicians from the San Antonio missions. In fact, years before the San Antonio International Mariachi Conference, there was already a fully fledged mariachi community within the Catholic churches in this area, along with students taking mariachi-type classes in K-12 education. I'd like to turn now to a case study, and I would like to turn our attention from broader historical narratives, which was a concrete, specific case study. That of San Antonio Mariachi musician Henry Gomez. Henry Gomez's life represents the legacy of the current contributions that the missions in South Texas have on religious and secular music traditions alike. Quique, as he is affectionately called, is one of the most revered mariachi practitioners of Texas and the United States. He has arranged, composed, and recorded for Joe Lopez, Grupo Mas, Michael Salgado, Jay Perez, Ruben Ramos, David Manes, Patsy Torres, Shelly Dares, Lisa Lopez, Elita Yavante, Veronica Castro, and Amy and Selena Quintana. Born in 1953, Henry Gomez was raised in a musical household and began singing at the age of 6. He remembers that his mother would sing. Henry fondly recalls that his father would take him and his family to Teatro Alameda in downtown San Antonio to watch the caravanas artísticas, or artistic tours that would pass through San Antonio. He remembers seeing José Jiménez and others perform. Henry says that after these performances, he would return home and use a broom as a guitar, singing loudly. Music was always present as his mother would sing while doing duties at home. Henry's affinity for learning and performing music led him to seek out opportunities at his nearby parish. In 1975, Henry Gomez met priest Edmundo Rodriguez. Edmundo's father was a guitar player in a mariachi in their hometown of El Paso. And so, he was born into the mariachi tradition. Henry Gomez would hang out with his fellow basketball players after games to socialize and sing songs. Father Edmundo overheard him singing and recognized in him an innate talent. He informed Henry that there had not been a choir at the parish of Adolfo for over 25 years. Father Edmundo encouraged Henry to provide for the parish choir. He told Henry that in exchange he would hire him through the church. And Henry initially began performing alone to spend the territory. But after the choir gained membership, Father Edmundo wanted to form a youth Mariachi Infantil Guadalupano. These were modeled after other prominently known youth mariachi groups like Los Chanitos Fails from Tucson and the Mariachi Infantil de la Ciudad de Monterrey. Henry decided to part ways with Coro Guadalupano and Infantil Mariachi once other instructors were hired. The teachers were hired to supplement the large numbers of students, and instructors were subsidized by the city of San Antonio. Henry stated that the reason he left was because up to that point, he did not read or write music. So he looked for opportunities elsewhere. For Henry, being part of the church helped him transition from music as a hobby to something more professional. Henry loved to sing, and after providing music for the liturgy, mariachi groups he sang with would prepare to perform for private events and play for donations for the church. It was not uncommon for the church musicians to also be members of community mariachi groups. He lost his fear of singing in public, which gave him more confidence and the wherewithal to continue learning. Around the same time as Henry was developing choral and mariachi music for church masses, other musicians had learned about the Misa Americana. In 1974, Josefina and Jesse Orta of Mariachi de Colores went to Mexico City to study the mariachi mass or Misa Americana. They brought what they had learned with them to San Antonio. The husband and wife duo performed the Misa Americana at missions throughout the 1970s. Josefina was the musical director of the foundation. She had formal musical training, and in college she studied mandolin, violin, and conducting. She was instrumental in teaching the mariachi mass to musicians throughout San Antonio. With the efforts of Henry and Josefina and Jesse Orta, the mariachi mass became popularized throughout San Antonio and spread to other locations in Texas. The San Antonio missions here were instrumental in the success of the Misa Americana and in making mariachi music even more accessible to many more communities. I would like to take the time for Henry to rise, and if we could recognize him with the performance. Chatting the day before, Henry noted that he had not been inside the mission of San Jose for about 38 years before he was this is his first trip back. And I think he said when he would perform here, he seemed a lot bigger. And now that he's returned after 40 years, it seems to have Texas is famed for being representative of Mexico, more so than any other city in Texas. The image is propelled by investment in the tourism sector, as San Antonio is the most visited city in Texas. It is home to many attractions, including the 5 18th century missions, the Riverwalk, and Alamo, to name a few. Yet for those of us who are music scholars, it is notably absent in discussions in our discipline. Texas at large is incredibly marginalized in classical music, popular music, and other musical traditions. We're here today because we know that it doesn't have to and shouldn't be that way. So thank you for having taken the time today to explore this why. Thank you. For the second half of the program, we're going to be performing a lecture performance demonstration. On behalf of the School of Music in the College of Fine Arts and Communication at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, it is a privilege to perform for all of you present. Mariachi Nueva Generación is one of 4 Latin American music ensembles at Texas State University School of Music. This ensemble has gained national recognition in the previous 30 years of its existence, and it is an honor for us to be under my direction. I would also like to recognize Maestro Miguel Guzman, faculty in the School of Music at Texas State University. He is one of the most revered pedagogues and practitioners of mariachi music in the United States. The first piece that we're going to be performing is titled Los Peces en el Río. Los Peces en el Río is a villancico, or a little song of the village. It's characterized by short stanzas and refrains originally these were folk songs of Spanish and Portuguese descent, but in the New World, they were brought to life with music. The fish represent the faithful, and those are represented in the refrains, while the stanzas speak to Virgin Mary. And so the faithful are the fishes, and they're over-exuberant with joy to see the birth of Christ, so much that they cannot help but drink and drink and drink from the streams of the river. The next piece is actually a medley of 3 huapangos. Huapangos come from the Huasteca region of eastern central Mexico, and they're also derived from Spanish and Portuguese poetic forms, principally the decima. A lot of the instruments that you see up here, we were talking about earlier in the lecture, were of course chordophonic instruments, strings instruments that did not exist in the New World until the arrival of the Spanish. But we have a few instruments here that are unique and particular to the mariachi tradition, and this demonstrates the mestizaje, the true blending of cultures. It's worthy to note that in the ship manifest of the Spanish, they were meticulous about writing everything down. We know how many and when the first instruments, chordophonic instruments, arrived in the New World, and almost immediately local copies were starting to be produced. Mario, can you show us again? So these are the 2 instruments that are ubiquitous in mariachi. The first is the vihuela, and if you look here, you see it has a vaulted back. A vaulted back. It's a 5-string tenor guitar, and it doesn't have much to do with the Spanish vihuela or vihuela of the period. It's actually tuned, but it does have a lot of characteristics of Baroque instrumentation. The frets are not metal; they're tied around the neck or the mastil, and the strings are tied directly onto a bridge with no rectification of a saddle. This is a 6-string bass-producing instrument played in octaves. The other instrument that also played bass lines in the original mariachi quartets was the harp. But harps are very difficult to carry around. And also because of the limitations on chromatic and versus diatonic tuning, it was just much more easier to have a guitarron on hand. Although there are instances in the Compagnon Codex from South America, where you'll see a lot of harpists playing with the harp upside down over their shoulder. And that's to be able to walk and play and follow along at the same time. So back to the guitarron. It's a 6-string produced instrument. It's ubiquitous to the mariachi. It also has a vaulted back. It looks a lot heavier than what it actually is. It's pretty lightweight. It's not strung, but plucked in octaves, and it has no frets. Spanish guitar, classical guitar, then you have this whole makeup of the mariachi. This initially represents the continuo section of the Baroque ensemble. So it's accompaniment, it's rhythmic aspect, and also harmonic voice. And we're kind of the engine that thrusts the mariachi. We can interchange a lot of rhythms in the mariachi tradition, but it's important to note that we will call a song a certain genre based on what the rhythm is playing, almost to the detriment of melody and lyrics. So in this next piece, we're going to feature huapango rhythms that are not from the mariachi tradition, but have been absorbed into La Peteguera.
Recuerda cuando pusiste tus manos sobre las mías, tus manos sobre las mías. Recuerda cuando pusiste y llorando me dijiste que jamás me olvidaría si es lo primero que hiciste por tus malas compañías.
Sentimiento. And this is again a part of the negotiation that mariachi music has had with many other musical traditions. This one is a Mexican waltz by Jesus Alcaraz Rodriguez. The waltz was popular in Mexico among upper social classes pre-Mexican Revolution. After the Revolution, all these other musical ensembles throughout Mexico start to revive and rediscover, as well as create new compositions based on these groups. For all of you, sentimiento. Mediterranean genre absorbed into the mariachi tradition besides the Viennese waltz is an Austrian polka. Here is a Mexican polka written by Miguel Martinez, who is known as the grandfather, the great father of mariachi trumpet playing. La Chumba. Moving away from Europe, let's now see how mariachi interacts with other Latin American musical genres. The next piece is a Mexican joropo. A joropo is a rhythmic genre. It's a musical genre from Venezuela and Colombia in South America. It came over to Mexico in the late 50s, early 60s, and has been transforming ever since in its own vein. One of the most popular joropos mexicanos, for all of you, La Viquina de Rubén Fuentes.
Solitaria camina la viquina
Another musical genre brought into the mariachi tradition from Latin America is the bolero from Cuba. Originally, the bolero was performed in Spain, but in Cuba it took on a life of its own and has been disseminated all throughout Latin America, North and South America, not just Mexico. What's interesting is to note that the original bass line of the bolero was considered quite obscene because it was so highly syncopated. It's just the difference of an eighth note. That was deemed too scandalous. So then everything on the downbeats. This arrangement actually facilitates both, so you'll hear the distinction between the bolero cubano and the bolero. For all of you from Ruben Fuentes, Siena. finalize our program. The final piece is El Son de la Negra. And this is the song form. We've played everything except for song forms native to the mariachi tradition. Well, this song form, son jalisciense, is a song form native to the mariachi tradition. It's extremely exuberant and thrilling to hear. And this is just a very personal note here. The reason I fell in love with mariachi guitar playing is because of songs like what you're about to hear. El Son de la Negra. State University, the American Musicological Society Southwest Chapter, Dr. Salfin, Dr. Virginia Wilton, Adolfo Estrada, thank you so much.